Okay, starting.
All right, great. I'll let you guys know when to start talking. Okay, go ahead and start.
It says there's no people on the call. Oh, okay, great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Beth Ann, and I'm your moderator for this evening. Welcome to tonight's Oregon Education Association Town Hall with National Education Association President Lily Eskelsen Garcia and OEA President Hannah Vandering to discuss what we're going to do to put a stop to the unnecessary and costly high-stakes standardized testing. To ask a question, please press 0 on your telephone keypad and you'll be connected directly with one of our volunteer operators. Again, press 0 to ask a question. Hannah, would you like to start us off?
Sure. I want to welcome all of you to the call and thank you for joining us this evening. It's great to have an opportunity to talk with you about an issue that's important to all of us, which is testing. We're fortunate tonight to have our NEA President Lily Eskelsen Garcia with us to share some thoughts and discuss how OEA and NEA are working together to lift up the voice of educators and create a system of assessment that guides instruction and promotes student learning. Before I turn it over to Lily, I want to share some of the great work that OEA members are doing to lead the way. I'm going to pause for just a moment because we have some people who are joining us right now. So we'll pause for just a moment and I'll have Beth Ann again give the directions on how to get a question in the queue.
So as a reminder, if you have a question, please press 0 on your telephone keypad and you'll be connected directly with one of our volunteer operators. They will ask you about your question and then you'll have an opportunity to ask online. Again, press 0 to ask a question. Lily, would you like to start? Would you like to
Well, I would just say, hola, Oregon, how are you? And I know that this is a very important issue. I'm so proud of OEA and Hannah and everybody that helped pull this together. I don't know if there's a more important education issue facing us today. Here we are 12 long, sad years into No Child Left Untested. Think about it. The kindergartners that started in 2002 when they passed NCLB are now seniors. They've actually not known anything outside of this testing insanity. And I believe we're at a tipping point now. But I'm not sure which way we're going to tip. The point that is being tipped here it could end up tipping towards more and more useless, toxic testing that is sucking the resources, the time, the joy out of teaching and learning. And it is going to take our professional intervention, our action, to bring the public the proper and correct information about what assessments are, what accountability should be, and what it should look like, and bring the people to our side. We are the ones who actually know the names of those kids, and I believe we're the ones that can lead us out of this desert. So on this call, we're hoping that people will call in, that they'll call with ideas, that they'll call with their stories, that they'll call with questions. There's a lot of questions that we need to have answered. And we're going to talk about our role, our responsibility as educational professionals, as social justice activists, but also as colleagues, as partners in this union. What can we do to lift our voices up and sound the alarm about the testing that has just gotten out of control and absolutely poisoned the learning environment in so many of our schools? I always start an interview, as I've been doing throughout the country, when we talk about testing, I always make the point that teachers, we are not against tests. We invented tests. I gave the Friday spelling test in my 6th grade for about 20 years. My kids probably thought I gave too many tests, but I actually designed my classroom tests so that I could tell how my kids were doing, who needed more help, who was going a little bit faster than others. We've always used assessments, not just paper, pencil tests, but lots of ways for kids to be able to demonstrate that they got it and that they're ready to move on. We're not afraid of assessing our students. We've made out report cards. We know how to do this. What we're talking about is something very different, of course. We're talking about the misuse of standardized mandatory tests that may or may not have anything to do with what we're teaching in our classrooms. And what we're also talking about is the high-stakes nature of those standardized tests. This is the toxic influence, of course. You could have a very good test based on very good standards that is completely aligned with what you were teaching in your classroom, and some politician can still mess it up by saying, and here on this test is the number of points you have to score, and if you score 1 point lower than that 3rd grader, you don't get to be a 4th grader. That's a high-stakes punishment. Senior, you don't get to graduate. That's what we want to talk about on this call, and I'm just, again, so pleased and happy that OEA members are fighters in this important issue.
Thank you, Lily. As a reminder, to ask a question, please press 0 on your telephone keypad, and you'll be connected directly with one of our volunteer operators. Again, press 0 to ask a question. Hannah?
Yes, thank you, Lily. And members, thank you again for joining us this evening. I'm really proud of the work that the OEA-RA delegates took in May to put high-stakes standardized testing on our agenda and the work that we're doing, giving us direction to turn the corner around the overuse and misuse. We've been organizing since. I want to share one important piece of work that we're doing. We have a group of 16 members from across the state working with our Chief Education Officer, Nancy Golden, the State Department of Education, and the Governor's Office to create a system of assessments that best supports student learning and is meaningful to educators. And we believe that this group in the next few months will be coming forward with some recommendations for the governor, and we really want to hear from you tonight. So I believe we have some questions.
So before we get started, let's start with our first poll question. So audience, what do you think is the most important reason to call for a moratorium on high-stakes standardized tests? Press 1 if you think it takes away from important classroom time. Press 2 if you think tests eat into the budget. Press 3 if it's not fair to assess. And 4 if you have another reason. And let's go to our first question. Tricia from Troutdale. Hi, Tricia.
Hi. I have a question about NEA support of Common Core standards. And my biggest question I come back to is that the standards were not created by professionals, teachers. And so why are we supporting them, or why are we not questioning them in our practice?
NEA was involved with the drafts of the Common Core from the very beginning. We've been sending those out to our national board certified teachers, to Teachers of the Year, and so there's been a lot of classroom teachers who are all over those Common Core. But I'll tell you, when I talk to my good friends here in Utah that I've taught with for 20 years who said, Lily, I'm worried about the Common Core. I'm sure they're going to turn it into just one more standardized test, hit the cut score, and get punished. Most of the criticism that I've heard about the Common Core is the inevitability that they will take whatever standards, whether they're your state standards, I taught in Utah for 20 years. We had Utah standards. I'm not exactly sure who came up with those, but with with the Common Core standards, what we have done, and what I personally did, is I went through all the 6th grade standards, which I taught, and I looked at them and I went, I could teach that. I like creative, collaborative, project-based, and I pulled out all of the standards that could not be measured on a paper, pencil, multiple choice test. So the question that I have for the PARCC and the Smarter Balance folks that are developing these tests, I'm still waiting for an answer on the tests, on the assessment. I said, I understand the kinds of things that mathematical calculations that you can assess on a paper, pencil, standardized test, but how do you assess give an opinion? Because that's one of the language arts standards. I'm still waiting for an answer, because if we're going to end up with a series of tests that are going to be high-stakes tests that are not aligned to the most critical creative standards in the Common Core, they will have betrayed any hope that we had, that we were finally going to get to critical creative thinking skills with the Common Core. It is all going to come down to the tests, and then it will come down to how those tests are implemented. In some places, like in New York, in Florida, it's been a total disaster. In other places like Kentucky and California, they're actually taking the time to involve the practitioners in how to get it right. And so we want to learn from those places where they're taking their time and they're decoupling it from high-stakes punishments.
Thank you, Lily. Hannah, do you have something else to add?
We've done some polling in the past, and actually today we just got some additional polling back from members around the Common Core, because we've been asking the question, trying to really understand where members are on the issue. And there were 3 choices when talking about the Common Core state standards. So members could support the new Common Core standards. 21% fell into that bucket. 61% fell into the bucket of support the new Common Core standards with some reservations, and 16% do not support the new Common Core standards. And again, as we're looking at this data that just is fresh today, that we got our information back from the pollster, we'll be digging in a little bit more. We tried to ask some questions to understand those reservations and to understand where different groups of members were. So we'll be sharing that out more with members soon.
Thank you, Hannah. We're going to move to our next caller, Tricia from Portland.
Tracy.
Oh, Tracy, I'm sorry. Tracy from Portland. You're on the line.
Yes, I am a elementary education certified teacher and a special education K through 12 certified teacher who graduated from the University of Oregon. And the question I wanted to ask was, what is your opinion on using research-based progress monitoring as a way to measure the effectiveness of special education teachers? Because I've been doing that since 1989, and I've actually been a pioneer. And it's about time that people are coming to where I've been for years as far as measuring my effectiveness for teaching with special education students.
I'm not sure who you're asking the question, Tracy.
What my question is what is your opinion on using progress monitoring as a tool to measure the effectiveness of teaching for special education students in lieu of Smarter Balance assessment?
This is Lily, and I'm going to defer to you, Tracy. You're an expert in this, and I would need to know more about progress monitoring. But I will tell you in general, we have to listen to the professionals. We're the ones who understand what it is that our kids need. And so part of what the NEA is doing is we're putting together an accountability task force, because everything we've seen when they say let's hold teachers accountable for the progress of their students, we'll call them effective or not effective by their quota of kids, whether or not they hit their, numbers on a standardized test. We know that that's a disaster. We know that there's nothing scientifically research-based on anything like that. So we have to be able to go forth and say, here is something better. And so you're saying what is music to my ears. You're saying, I have something. I know it works. I'm experienced in using it. And it makes sense for the students that I'm teaching that we evaluate my effectiveness on this. And by the way, I don't ever want to see an evaluation system of any educator, whether that's a teacher or a support professional, or an administrator, based on their quota of kids who hit a cut score. An evaluation system isn't supposed to be a gotcha. It's supposed to help me be a better teacher. It's supposed to help me be a better educator. It's supposed to tell me what my strengths are, where I should be focusing maybe more effort. And no one is talking about a true evaluation system that leads me ever forward in being a better teacher. So I am thrilled to find out more about progress monitoring and other kinds of evaluation tools and assessment tools that we can then bring as our ideas to the policymakers.
And Tracy, I would just say thank you, as Lily has, for bringing forward. And I think our goal is to really lead the profession and to be able to use those techniques that work for us. And I would say one of the things that we can do together is not one technique works for everyone, but we need to have the tools in our tool belts to be able to meet the needs of all of our students. And with OEA working on the assessment system for students, I would welcome you to bring your voice in and let us know what's going on in your school and how you're effective with your students.
Well, let's, just a reminder, if you have a question, please remember to press 0 and you'll go to one of our live operators. So we have our first poll question result. What do you think is the most important reason to call for a moratorium on high-stakes standardized testing? The number one answer is it takes away from important classroom time, with 65% of our audience feeling that was the most important reason. Number 2 was the test eats into the budget at 7%. Not fair to assess received 11%, and then 17% had another reason. So again, press 0 to go to a live operator and ask your question. And now we're going to move to Elise from Eugene. And Elise, you are live.
Hello, Lily. Wonderful to be a part of the conversation this evening.
Oh, I like doing this. This is fun.
I have just seen you in a few clips online, and I think you're going to be a fantastic advocate for us. And
thank you.
My question, I had a background in childhood development. My degree was in that area. And I'm very concerned when I look at the Common Core standards, I'm a fourth grade teacher, that it is too rigorous. And the buzzword rigor, to me, looks like asking children to do things that are sometimes way beyond their cognitive level. How do you feel about that? And I guess, is there research that has debunked Piaget?
Oh, I don't think so. And I like I said, I have a lot of friends, obviously, who taught with me, who are educators all across the country, who have worked with me in the association work. And to tell you the truth, I have had probably an equal number of people that tell me, no, I like this. This is wonderful. It is rigorous, and we can do it. And I've heard other people say exactly what you just said, and especially the early childhood folks who I particularly ask them, help me find those ones. The standards are, you can put them on an app on your iPhone. And I said, help me find those standards that you believe are inappropriate for the age level that they're written for. And they have sat down and said this one, and this one. So here's what I've gone back to the folks that are working on the assessments, but which is different than working on the standards. And I've asked some of the folks at the level of the chief state school officers who worked with the Governors Association in pulling together the standards. And I said, what is the process for refining these? Because if I can find some that I just love, give an opinion after you hear a persuasive speaker, I love that one. But if someone else says, this one I don't love, and I feel like it's inappropriate, I know with the standards we had in my state, they were on a constant calendar of revision. They constantly had the standards in the hands of practitioners in my state who then tested them, field tested them, and that's what I don't see with the Common Core. And that's what I think is a glaring omission with the Common Core. I'm still, again, waiting for that answer. I understand that they said this will be a living document, we'll constantly be refining it, and I said, where, when, how do I tell people who have particular issues like you just brought up to me? Where do I send them to say this is what I think needs to be changed in the Common Core? And all I've heard so far is, well, we haven't got it down to that point yet, which goes right back to the greater issue of decoupling any kind of high-stakes consequences to the tests that are supposed to be aligned to these Common Core until you field tested it, until you have a system of refining it, until you've asked the different professionals out there, how is this working? Was this standard clear? Was it convoluted? Do we have to get rid of it? Do we have to rewrite it? Because if we're going to hold you accountable for teaching it, and it's not well written, where is our process of refining it? It goes back to doing what they're doing in California. Hit the pause button. Breathe. Let these things work. No state raced to get their state standards in. Why should we race on these Common Core standards? So I think you have a point well taken without knowing exactly which fourth grade standard you thought was too rigorous. I'm assuming that there were probably some you felt were very appropriate, correct?
I think she's off the line.
Sorry. But,
we'll let Hannah have a crack at this.
Just that we need to have a system to constantly be questioning and refining these.
Right, and Elise, I appreciate the question. It's one of the pieces of our priority action document that after the RA we came out with, and it is that we need to make sure that educators have had the opportunity to weigh in on the standards, and there is the right of states to make changes to the Common Core standards. It does require that they're college and career ready standards, but we do need to make sure that we've really looked at them and ensure that they are developmentally appropriate and that they meet the needs of our students. So that's part of our work that we hope you'll engage with us in.
All right, just a reminder that if you have a question, please press 0 and you'll be taken to one of our live operators. And now we're going to move to Mike from Springfield. Mike, you're on.
Hello?
You're on the air. Hi.
Okay. Hi, how you doing? Thanks for taking my call. I really appreciate it. Here's my question. We have these Common Core standards that come down the pipe, and I've been teaching for 31 years, and there's been a number of things that look similar that we've gone over the years, but it never seems that a group of teachers have developed these kinds of standards or whatever it is. What would it take for the state of Oregon, for example, to get a group of teachers from different grade levels, different curriculum areas, put them together, have them develop the standards, have them develop what it needs to be, or work with whoever, the powers that be, to work to those standards to make it so they're teacher-friendly? Because it never seems, the Common Core standards, I teach in the business department, and the Common Core standards that come down, we've got to adapt them to it, and it's difficult, they're convoluted. I have an issue with that, and I'd really like to know if we could do, something with just the teachers.
Well, I guess it's possible. I don't think they're going to start all over again. And as I was saying earlier, I'm not actually sure if teachers wrote my Utah standards that I used. I think there's probably curriculum developers but what I do know is that NEA was involved as they were being developed, and I will tell you the test I set for them. They sent us the first draft, and we looked at the first draft, and they invited us to send them out to our members. So we have a list of people who are certified, nationally board certified teachers in language arts and math on every single grade level, accomplished classroom teachers, and we sent them out. We said, get your red pen out, scribble them up. These need to have a teacher's eyes on them. And then they sent them back, and I thought, here's the test. Let's see if they just thank us for sharing. And they didn't. They actually took nearly every single comment that our practitioners, our national board certified teachers and accomplished teachers that we sent them to, sent in. So that lifted my confidence that they weren't just playing games. But I want to go back to the principle of whatever the standards are, whoever wrote them. You might write them and I might not like what you wrote because we're two different teachers. We're two different human beings. But I would still want the ability to say, if a whole bunch of people think this is poorly written, what's the process for changing it or throwing it out? What's the process for a state doing that? What's the process for changing the entire program? Most of the states have a regular rotation where they review their standards to see if they're working, if they're reasonable, if teachers are if they have problems with them. There is no process put in place now with the Common Core. What we are doing now is trying to work with the Governors Association and the Chief State School Officers who own this little thing and say, as you review it, the people who review it should be practitioners. They should be people who are experts in each of the grade levels in the math and language arts standards that are coming down. So your point is very, very well taken, that without the voice and the input and the actual hands-on of the practitioners, they're bound to do something wrong.
Hannah, do you have something to add around to Mike?
So, Mike, I think one of the things, again, is that, as Lily said, they're not going to start over with the test, but what we can do is make sure that as we're looking at the Common Core and putting together members groups that can actually give feedback on them, that people get involved and really share their voice in what we need to have as far as changes to the Common Core standards so that they actually reflect the needs of our students.
All right. We remember, if you have a question, press 0, and we are going to move to our next caller, Cheryl from McMinnville. Cheryl, you are on the line.
Yes. Hi, this is Cheryl, and I've been in education for 30 years, and I just retired. Part of my question is, I've spent the last 6 years or more watching us have to teach to the Oaks test and teach to the test to get the kids to pass the test. And my concern is the passion that the kids have for learning anymore. It feels like they're drilled. I mean, I started 30 years ago when we used to drill and practice. I feel like we've gone back to that. I don't think the Oaks has helped that. I don't think Smarter Balance is going to help that. I don't have a problem with the Common Core so much. I mean, I do believe in higher standards, but assessing that is a whole different issue. My main concern is these high-stakes tests that we, as educators, administrators, have to put so much emphasis on and I feel like our kids' learning time is really taken away. So I just want to know if someone is asking those questions.
Cheryl, that is, first of all, congratulations on your retirement. That is wonderful. I hope it's wonderful. I actually have a good friend who's taking retirement earlier than she wanted to because she's lost the joy of teaching. She's the best teacher I know. She taught me everything I know about teaching, and it is a tragedy that she feels that her talents are being wasted as a test giver. So it's not your imagination. You are feeling what so many people are feeling right now. But I love that you focused on the students. Yes, I want to have a joyful job, and yes, I love teaching. But when you say that students, that it sucked the joy out of learning and that kids don't see school as something that even interests them anymore because they feel like it's a big testing game. One of the things that we're also looking at with NEA is the mental health issue of putting that kind of pressure on children, let alone the teachers, the support staff, the administrators, and having everybody tie themselves in knots to hit some cut score on a standardized test. When you take a look at kids that are being pressured into looking at these tests, these high-stakes tests, I might not graduate, I might not be able to go to fourth grade, then you realize that this testing abuse, this abuse of test data must end. It's hurting kids. And the good news I can tell you is as we take polls at the NEA, we're not alone as educators. Parents see this. They know we're not making it up. A lot of our social justice partners, special ed advocates, mental health advocates see this, and they are standing with us. When we go to legislators, when we go to Congress, when we go to the Department of Education, we don't go alone. We bring these partners with us, and we are able to show the research that shows how this kind of testing obsession is bad, not just for killing the joy of learning, but the mental health of our students. So I want you to know that what you're feeling is not being unheard. We are NEA, I know OEA, we are building a coalition of partners who will be demanding an end to this toxic testing.
Right. Cheryl, I think you've hit on absolutely why we do what we do, and it is the polling for us that just came back talks about too much emphasis on high-stakes standardized testing, but it's taking the love of learning out of our classrooms, and it really is the hopes and dreams of educators across this state who chose this profession because they could make a difference in the lives of their students, and now what they're doing is they're being forced to teach to a test and really undermines the work that we do. So it's absolutely a core message that's coming from OEA out to our legislators, and I would encourage you to talk with your school board members, legislators, your administrators in your district about what are we going to do together to ensure that we put that love of learning back in our schools, that we fund our schools appropriately, create the learning environment that we know they deserve. So thank you for that question. And again, congratulations on your retirement and all the best.
All right. As a reminder, press 0 to ask a question. And we're going to move to our next caller, Jamie from Eugene. Jamie, you are on the line.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm in Eugene, and my question is a little bit about how Common Core standards and the Smarter Balance test kind of been interwoven together to be the same thing. And I fear that even educators, and kind of from what I've heard a little bit on the line, don't have the background about where the standards came from or maybe their intent across states. And I'm just wondering how OEA and NEA is going to support kind of the differentiation of those two things, both to educators and parents, and what we can do as educators to get the collaboration time together to implement them well without feeling like we're supporting any of the testing that we maybe don't agree with, you know.
We've made it a priority with NEA to talk about high standards separate and apart from looking at accountability systems that mandate that some kind of test data be the be-all and end-all of a teacher's evaluation, or whether or not a student is promoted to the next grade, or whether or not a school is labeled as failure. As I was saying at the beginning, even if you had standards you loved and a test that you felt was perfectly aligned to those standards, as soon as you start hooking high-stakes prizes and punishments, you will corrupt the data. And in service of better data, people that are absolutely convinced that our obsession with tests is healthy and wonderful for kids, keep coming back to me and saying, but we need data. We need to know how schools are doing. We need transparency. And I take a deep breath and talk very slowly so I'm not misunderstood, and tell them, if you tell someone that this third grader won't get to be a fourth grader based on one single test, you don't think that that's going to corrupt the data? You're no longer just having a kid do the best they can. You're having a kid wet their pants, throw up on their test. You're having a teacher feel like they're complicit in hurting kids. And you do get scandals like the test cheating scandal in Atlanta. And you do get corruption like the administrator in El Paso who decided to get his testing bonus prize of $60,000 over 3 years with a push-out program, making sure that kids that didn't do well on tests, mostly English language learners, were convinced to drop out of school so that he could make his bonus. It's been a corrupting influence. And so while I can talk about let's get the Common Core standards right, or if you've got better standards, let's take a look at those. But whatever those standards are, whatever the test is, good or bad, it is the high-stakes punishment or the high-stakes prize that will corrupt the results.
And Jamie, I think one of the things that we have tried to do, and we will continue to, is when we ask the question about whether members support the Common Core standards, they do so but with reservations, and it's about the implementation. And when we ask the question, what is that? It is about the use of the high-stakes tests, or the Smarter Balance. So we have to really work at ensuring that everyone has information and has the opportunity to review the standards, give feedback on them, and then that we, as we move forward with any assessment, whether it's Smarter Balance or any assessment that we use, it needs to guide instruction and give immediate feedback to students, of which we have a long ways to go with Smarter Balance on that.
So, callers, now we are going to move to our second poll question, which is really one of the most important parts of how we move this conversation forward. And that is, what will you do to help? Will you send a message? Press 1 if you will send a message to your legislator. Press 2 if you'll lobby your legislator. Press 3 if you will encourage parents to opt out. Press 4 if you will urge your school board to adopt a resolution against these harmful tests. And remember, if you have a question, press 0. And now we are going to go to Tracy in Estacada. Tracy, you are on the line.
Yes, this is Tracy, and I teach in Estacada. And I have a question regarding your opinion on the school districts that piloted Smarter Balance for Oregon. When we decided to do so to help our fellow peers make better tests, what ended up happening is we did not get feedback. So we weren't able to measure our effectiveness, and it's been a very frustrating experience for us because we based our Smarter goals on the performance of state testing. And I just wanted to know, what is your opinion on how teachers, students, parents didn't get the data they needed to know if their child is learning, if a teacher's teaching well?
I'm not familiar with the districts that piloted Smarter Balance, but I'm interested in your experience. This is I don't understand how anyone could do a pilot and then not give you the information you needed to find out. This is outrageous. I would love to know more. And I would love to know if other districts that were in this pilot, because I know they're piloting Smarter Balance in your state, they're piloting the PARCC test in other states, and other states there are some states that are trying to come up with their own assessment. But we've been talking about how if you don't properly field test it, you're going to end up with an absolute fiasco on your hands. So I'm interested in finding out what your experiences were and whether or not that was any better or worse in other pilot districts. And Hannah, I don't know if you've got any information on the pilot districts.
I do, and we had about 25% of our districts pilot. And Tracy, you're absolutely correct. We have no data that has come back to date, and our information is we won't get anything until December, and then it won't be disaggregated so that you can have information back to use to inform your SMART goals that you've set. And what's even more troubling is that the State Department doesn't believe this is an issue that we need to address. So we'll continue to work with the Department of Education and our Chief Education Officer, Nancy Golden. One of the other things that I'll share out of the polling that we just did, which is also very troubling, is those who actually piloted the Smarter Balance are less favorable of the Common Core than others. So there were some real concerns about the Smarter Balance test itself, as far as it being too difficult, that students were being assessed by one test. And technology was an issue. So there are lots of things that we need to talk about. That's one of the reasons, once again, that OEA is demanding the moratorium so that we have time to properly pilot the test, get feedback back to the educators, parents, and students so that we can move forward with an assessment that really works.
All right, so here's the poll question number 2. What will you do to help? We had 34% of members said send a message to legislators. 30% will encourage parents to opt out. 21% will urge school board to adopt a resolution against these tests. And 14% are willing to lobby their legislator. I sure hope we can get those lobbying messages up and to our legislators. We're all going to have to work together on that. Just a little friendly side note. Now we're going to move to Kat Olson from Central Point.
Hi, my name is Kat Olson. I'm from Central Point, Oregon. And
Great.
Am I on?
You are on, Kat.
Okay. So I am a 19-year veteran in Oregon, teaching elementary regular ed. And so my question is that we see that we need to investigate the Common Core state standards more thoroughly, and we need to set systems in place so that they're reviewed and that there's more professional educator involvement in that. And we need to definitely address the abuse of the standardized test. My question is, what can we do here on the ground at the grassroots level to inform stakeholders, all of them, and to build momentum to impact policy in this area. And I'm talking beyond just opt out or call your legislator or contact your legislator. I agree those are valuable, but what are some things that we can do to make a change in this area?
That is an excellent question, and there are things that we can do building level to the national level. Can I just say that the first thing, it sounds simple, but it's not. One of the things that absolutely alarms me is the mental health issue of putting pressure on students. I don't care if they're little guys or big guys, and we don't get to pass the laws that need to be changed. But one of the things that we can do is to not succumb to the pressure from on high to then put pressure on our students and make them fear school. I've been telling people on the building level to push back, and in a way that is perfectly legitimate, perfectly legal, perfectly professional. When someone says, well, we can't do this because we need test prep time. There's no law that says we have to do test prep. Push back and say, who says we have to do test prep? Oh, it's the school board. Well, let's go talk to the school board. Oh, it's the principal. Well, let's go talk to the principal. Go back and find out who made this rule or this regulation and say, now what do we have to do to change it? Some of these things people are making up, building level to building level. They're telling some little guys that they don't get recess until they get their test scores up. They're going to punish them by not giving them recess. We don't need to change a law to do that. We just need to find out who made that up and get parents to say, no, my child will have recess. We will not obsess and turn ourselves into pretzels and jump through hoops for these tests. So I would push back on all the things that we're told we have to do and find out if you really do have to do them. Some of them you might, but some of them you might not. And you can, I think, get your colleagues on a school building level and say, how do we make some sense out of bringing a little bit of joy back into our schools and take responsibility for that? There are some things that have to be done by Congress. The Elementary and Secondary Education Act, or so-called No Child Left Untested, has to take a federal act of Congress to change. But what we're seeing, local, state, and national, people who make the testing policy that we all have to live under, they see the house of cards falling. They see all of those pillars of corporate school reform, privatize, deprofessionalize, standardize, hit your cut score, as if we were all factory test technicians. They see that none of that has worked. It has actually hurt our most vulnerable students, the students they said they were most concerned about. And so what we want to do on every level is talk about an accountability system that starts with accountability for resources, accountability for programs. Do all kids have what all kids need? Who's responsible for that? Who do we hold accountable for that? Who do we hold accountable for giving authority to the professionals on the building level to decide something and design something that really works for kids in that school? Who's giving us the authority and not just the punishments? Well, someone else tells us how we have to do what they want us to do. So we are looking at policy. We're looking at how we can improve the actual atmosphere of a school. It's going to take all of us on every single level. But that house of cards is falling, and now we get to come in and make a case for research, evidence-based, whole child reform. where you look at equity, where you look at measuring what matters, and where you look at empowering the professionals on the building level to design, assess, and intervene with something that works for the children in that school.
And thank you, Lily. Kat, I would say we have the opportunity right now during our week of action. We had some great interactions yesterday with Wear Red for Public Ed, just to get our voice out there. But where things really happen at the local level, engaging students and parents and making sure that their voice is heard along with our voice about what it is we need to do to use assessments correctly and build the schools that our students deserve. Working with our school boards, making sure that we elect the right people to our school boards that will stand up for public education and our students. So there's lots of work to be done at the local level, and OEA and our staff are here to support in any way. But once we get our members excited about the work and they're engaged, that's when we're going to see real change in Oregon. So thanks for the question.
All right, callers, we're getting ready to go to our next caller. But I just want to let everyone know that we're getting close to the end of our call. And if for some reason we are not able to get to your question, please know that you can hit 0 and you will be prompted at the end of the event to leave a voicemail if we don't get to your call. I'm sorry. You can press 0 to ask a question with one of our live operators now. And if we don't get to it, you can leave a voicemail, and we'll be happy to follow up with you at the end. So now we're going to move to Sarah Hartford in Tillamook.
Hi, this is Sarah.
Go ahead. Thank you. You're on the line.
Hi, my question kind of went along with Kat's. She was just talking about what would be the best course of action that an educator can do, like right at this very moment. I didn't know how to really answer the question, the poll question, press 1, press 2, press 3, or press 4. I wasn't sure what to do.
So, Sarah, there are lots of ways for you to get involved in the work that we're doing. And I would encourage you to talk with your local leadership team to get engaged with OEA. We're putting together a toolkit that's almost ready to go out. We were waiting until we got this polling back so we could give all of our members language that will really work and strategies that will help us be successful. Our ultimate goal is to ensure that assessments are used properly with our students, and that's going to take all of us working at each level to have policies in place at the local level, state, and national. So, Lily, suggestions from you?
Well, I hope that you'll go up to NEA.org. Click on Raise Your Hand for Education, which you'll find a link to that. One of the things that we're asking our members to do is to sign a pledge for our commitment to saying that no matter what we're given, we're going to do the right thing for our students. And we'll also be asking you to look forward to some emails, some communications you'll be getting, probably through your state, and asking you to get more involved with what we can do on every single level, local school districts, state legislatures, and even moving the Congress of the United States of America into bringing some sanity to the toxic testing, which means decoupling the assessments that we have with our students from punishments, from these automatic punishments that go on without any professional intervention from the actual classroom educators. So we're going to be hitting this on every single level and bringing our partners in, parents, activists in other areas that care about children and care about doing the right thing. You're going to be hearing more. I love what OEA is doing, and I hope you'll take them up on really helping to get the people that in your circle of influence to be involved in all of those on-the-ground activities that OEA is starting. You're going to be seeing that in every single state, and NEA is going to be the umbrella organization to bring it all together.
All right, Hannah, do you have any additional comments?
I made some comments. Have
you did. We are close to the end of our conference, and what I'm going to ask is I'm going to ask both Lily and Hannah to give some closing remarks. And as we shut down our conference call, you can leave your questions. You'll be prompted as you hang up. So, Lily, why don't you go first?
I just want to thank Hannah and OEA and all of the OEA members who were on this call for your passion in this. It's a tough thing. We want to get it right. There's going to be lots of different ideas, but I know that we're all on the same side. We're on the side of kids, and we want to get this right because we can see what's happening right now is hurting kids, and it's getting worse. And we've got to get in front of this. We have got to lead. I love OEA's spirit, and I love the spirit of your members. We are not going to wait for some politician to get this right. Nobody lives that long. If we don't lead, it's not going to get done, and I can see that OEA is leading, and I think that's going to be an example and an inspiration to 49 other states. So thank you, Hannah. Thank you, OEA.
Thank you, Lily. And we appreciate the support from NEA and the work that's being done. And I just want to end again by thanking members for joining us this evening and for all of the work that you do every day to make a difference in the lives of our students. We're dedicated to moving forward the work from the OEA-RA. Our delegates were very strong in telling us this is an issue that we have to stand up for, and we're doing that. We're building that system of assessments that as we move forward, it will work for students and be respectful of an educator's right to teach. Parents need us to be out there working with them and students to make a difference. So I look forward to working with all of you throughout the year. If you have any questions, please contact us. We have board directors all across the state. You can go online to OregonEd.org. Please take a look at our toolkit that's coming out and join us in this important work to help make sure that our students have the schools they deserve.
All right. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I will let you know that at the high mark, we had over 700 callers on this call, and we very much appreciate your participation this evening. We hope you've found it informative. And we will be, over the next few days, we will be loading additional information onto our website. And actually, I've been corrected that we have had over 4,000 people that was our high water mark. I think we had 700 listening for quite some time. And we thank you very much and wish you a very good evening. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope that the rest of your week of action goes wonderfully. Good night.